Well, hello to everybody who's on this webinar right now or who might be listening in the future. Thanks for letting me talk a little bit about the lactation support in the workplace and what laws come into play for businesses in the U.S. right now. My name is Katrin Hogan. Katrin Hogan Alb, and I work at Tulane University. We have a women's health education center within the School of Public Health, and we do women's health research, and we do breastfeeding outreach, and several other women's health outreach types of things. So if you can't hear me at any point, just let me know, send a little message. But I want to take everybody through a little bit about why supporting breastfeeding employees is important to businesses. And like I mentioned, what the law is in the United States, and really just how businesses can comply with it. It's very easy to comply with the law. And then what the Mary Amelia Center here in New Orleans is able to provide for businesses in reference to help, grants, and that type of thing. At the bottom of this first slide, you can see our website, and we have resources on our website that I'll share in a little bit. So let's see if I can advance. Okay, this is my contact information, so that if in the future you would like to contact me, if you need any help with anything or have questions, always feel free to email me at workplacebreastfeeding@gmail.com or to give me a call. So one thing that's important to keep in mind when we think about employment is that 56% of women with infants under a year old are in the workforce. And when you think about women with young children, it jumps way higher, even to 75%. So infants under a year, the moms with infants under a year may be breastfeeding. In the US, we have about 75% of women start breastfeeding their babies. So the chances very likely that at some point, most businesses who employ women who might be in the childbearing age of 18 to 44 or so might encounter one of their female employees getting pregnant and wanting to come back to work and needing space or break time or both to pump breast milk for their babies. So mothers' work outside of the home is associated with a shorter duration of breastfeeding initiation and, like I said, duration. So when moms do work and they're either working part-time or full-time, they will often think that working is somewhat incompatible with continuing to breastfeed. And in the next slide, we're going to talk about potential barriers that moms might face. So they could encounter a lack of break time where they might not be able to pump breast milk on a regular basis. And an issue that comes from that is that moms, basically the way milk production works is that if the more milk out equals the more milk made. So in order to continue to breastfeed her baby and to provide milk for a child care center while she's gone from her baby, she needs to be pumping milk on regular, let me start about that again. In order to provide enough milk for her baby, she needs to pump at regular intervals during the day, during her work day, in order to continue to make milk. So often women encounter a lack of private space to pump milk. They might work in a non-office environment, whether it's in a warehouse or in outside, postal workers, etc. Many women have embarrassment about speaking up about their needs, and even if they have regular break times and even a space that they know that they can go to. They are just embarrassed, especially if women have supervisors that are males. They may not want to speak up about their needs. And then lack of perceived job security. Obviously, many moms are worried about continuing in their job or about being fired if their supervisor would not look kindly upon them pumping. And so really, it's best to have employers put in place policies and supportive practices before a mom comes to them or an employee comes to them and says that they need this support. Just to go over a little bit about why supporting breastfeeding moms can be important to businesses. We're going to hit a couple of bullet points here. So one-day absences occur twice as often for employees whose babies are not breastfed. Now, there are many babies who are just as healthy as breastfed babies. But when we look at public health in general and overall, breastfed babies are, on the whole, healthier. They get less infections. Their digestion is better. There's many different ways that breastfeeding impacts the health of babies. So women who do breastfeed often have healthier babies, which means that they are not as likely to be taking a sick day to take care of their sick baby. Absenteeism rates are lower for male employees when their female partners breastfeed. Again, it's fathers may take less time to care for a sick baby if this baby's not sick at all. And this is one thing we talk a lot about when we talk to employers. Breaks are predictable, but absences aren't. So if you are giving your employee regularly scheduled breaks to pump her breast milk, then at least you are aware of when those break times will be, and they're regular. But absences to care for a sick baby or a sick mom are not quite as predictable. Also, presenteeism. Moms who breastfeed often have, again, healthier or just happier babies who are breastfed, again, tend to digest milk easier, have lower issues with feeding in general, and moms may get more rest. When they're at work, they are more focused, more loyal to the company, etc. Employees of companies providing lactation support feel more productive and more loyal to the company. I really like this slide because basically companies often want to retain their employees. So the cost of replacing employees who may decide to stop work because they want to breastfeed full-time, because if their company will not support them pumping, moms may decide to stop working altogether and stay home. And replacing those workers is far more expensive than paying their regular salary and providing breastfeeding support for them. Obviously, just retaining is better than retraining. Okay, so getting into where the law comes in. So in 2010, when the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act was passed, there was a part of that law, it was Section 4207, it amended the Fair Labor Standards Act, and it's mostly called the Nursing Mothers Law. And it basically says that any employer in the US must provide two things for nursing employees. They must provide reasonable break time for an employee to express her breast milk for her nursing child for 1 year after the child's birth, anytime that employee has a need to express the milk. And then the second is that they must provide a place that is not a bathroom for the employee to go pump. Specifically, this law, because it amends the Fair Labor Standards Act, covers non-exempt employees. Usually non-exempt means hourly. So for the most part, salaried employees are not specifically covered under this law. And really, they're not covered under any lactation law in the United States, except for in certain states, but in Louisiana, that's not one of them. However, we often find that businesses employ both hourly and salaried employees. And if they are going to provide this for hourly employees, it's even actually easier often to provide it for salaried employees. Employers are not required to compensate employees for that break time that they need to take, unless it would already coincide with their regular break times that are compensated. So if they have break times that are not compensated already, then and they choose to pump on those break times, they would still not be compensated. But if they are paid, if they have a paid lunch, etc., then any time that they choose to pump during their already paid times, they would continue to be paid. If they have a 15-minute break and is normally paid, but they need to take 25 minutes to pump, then the extra 10 minutes would not be compensated. Many employers allow their employees to take that with vacation time or to use some other compensation. Maybe they work slightly longer during the day to compensate for the time. Employers with less than 50 employees are allowed to apply for an exemption to the law if that compliance would impose an undue hardship for their business. And that's really all the law says. If it would impose any undue hardship, the process for applying for an exemption, it's not an automatic exemption, you have to apply for it, and you apply to the Department of Labor. And then it gets funneled to our local office of the Department of Labor, which for most of Louisiana, there's a couple of offices, but a big one is in New Orleans. And they would look and interview you and ask, okay, what is your hardship? And then they would assess whether or not you really do have a hardship, or if some sort of support can be provided. And let me go back for a sec. Reasonable break time, generally for a female who works an 8-hour shift, for example, normally she may have to pump 2 to 3 times during that 8-hour shift. And for most women, pumping will take anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes. So when she first comes back to work and the baby is still small and drinking a lot of milk, she may need, 25 minutes or so to go to the place where she will pump, to set up the pumping equipment to pump, and then to clean the pumping equipment and go back to her office or wherever she works. But as the baby gets older and she gets more practiced and efficient, then the time may whittle down to 15 minutes or so. And really, most women pump, this is very temporary. I mean, most women in the US do not breastfeed their babies past a year. And if they do, oftentimes women will stop pumping at a year. And for many women, that's a lot sooner. So this is really very temporary. Here at the Mary Amelia Center, we have a partnership with the Louisiana Breastfeeding Coalition, and it's a project called the Louisiana Workplace Breastfeeding Support Program, and we assist businesses throughout Louisiana in complying with this federal law. We let them know about the specifics of the law, just like I'm doing right now. We meet with employers if they feel the need to discuss why this is important for business and how a program can be easily, or a program or just support can be easily implemented in their specific business. We also provide small grants to any business that wants to furnish a lactation space. And it can be a temporary space or a permanent space. Usually permanent spaces are more for larger businesses, but we will also provide, if a small business wants to provide a space and just use a room divider in another otherwise smaller space or something like that for a woman who might need to pump, then we will provide things like that. We also, one of our main projects is we designate workplaces as breastfeeding-friendly workplaces or breastfeeding-friendly workplace champions. basically any workplace that complies with the law, that's all non-bathroom space for breastfeeding employees, we will designate as a breastfeeding-friendly workplace. And it's all self-report. It's a very short application on our website, and businesses put in their information and say, yes, we provide break time when it's appropriate. Maybe they don't even have any breastfeeding employees right now, but they will still, if that comes up, they would comply with the law. And then champion workplaces are those that have a written policy. So if that policy is in the staff handbook, if it's written and posted in the break room, wherever that written policy is, we encourage all businesses to have a written policy, because then when there are new hires, or when a woman does become pregnant and might be looking for policies on maternity leave and breastfeeding and pumping in the workplace, then it's all written right there for her. And like we mentioned earlier, women who already know that support is in place are much more likely to ask or to take advantage of that support and be just less worried about losing their job or talking to their supervisor. Below this is our website on this slide, and this is where you would go to apply for a breastfeeding-friendly workplace designation. Or we also have on our website the link for an application for a grant. So again, it's a very short little application, like why you would need to apply for a room divider screen, or a chair and a table to furnish a small lactation space. We have several options, but all of our grant provisions are all furniture or lending library types of things. We do give out small refrigerators if a business would like that, things like that. And we are funded by the Kellogg Foundation. So these are a couple of lactation space examples. This is in a lactation room, but it could also be just a little nook that some businesses have that is cordoned off for a pumping mom. This is a screen, an example of a screen that one mom pulls across the opening to her cubicle at work. And this is a breastfeeding employee who uses a storage room whenever she needs to pump, and it has a door that locks so that she has privacy, and she just hangs a little door hanger on the outside that says, please do not disturb, or puts a sticky note on the door, and so she uses the storage room whenever she needs to pump. These are some great resources from the Office of Women's Health, the National Office of Women's Health. They have a wonderful, wonderful website called Employer Solutions that has literally practically any employer solution that has ever been thought of. And they specifically have a 8-minute YouTube video for small businesses that's really encouraging and talks about how to handle some issues that small businesses have with supporting their breastfeeding employees. So that's really all I have for you today, just specifics about the law and about what we can provide. We work with all types of workplaces in not only New Orleans, but also Louisiana, and we really encourage any business who wants to be recognized as a breastfeeding-friendly workplace to fill out the application. We're very quick with responding usually to applications, and there's also a program from the Department of Health and Hospitals in Louisiana that's called Well Ahead, and they designate businesses and pretty much anything you can think of, schools, hospitals, coffee shops, anything, as well spots. And this breastfeeding designation is one of the kind of criteria that you need to have to become a well spot in many places. So if you're interested in receiving even more recognition for doing healthy things in your business, I suggest you go look at the Well Ahead program as well. If you want a link to that, just let me know. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, if you would like any more information, or if you do end up having any questions, please always email me at workplacebreastfeeding@gmail.com. And thanks so much for supporting breastfeeding employees.